If you go out to market, let's say that you're selling your business and you talk to 3 different buyers and you're having some conversations and, each buyer says, hey, give me some financial information. I want to take a look at it. And you hear from all buyers and all 3 of them want to do some sort of a deal and they want to put together proposals or letters of intent. If you don't have a deadline, now you're waiting, right? You're sitting there, you're waiting. And so let's say, Jim at acquirer A shows up and says, hey, Paul, here's my offer. I'm super excited about buying your business. And I look at it and I'm like, okay, it's a $10 million offer. Seems great. I wish I could get more, but maybe it's acceptable. I'm not sure. It depends on what the other 2 are going to do. Now I'm waiting for the other 2. And Jim happened to put at the bottom of the offer that, hey, Paul, you've got 5 days to consider this. You either accept it or reject it. And if you accept it, please sign and return it to me. So now I've got an exploding offer. So what do I do? Well, I didn't set a deadline, and now I'm calling Dennis and Ryan. Dennis and Ryan are the individuals at the other acquirers, and I call Dennis up and I say, hey, Dennis, you said you're going to put on an offer. I'm just curious, what you're going to do. And Dennis starts asking questions like, hey, I didn't think you were in a rush and you want to try to build competition for yourself. So, hey, I got an offer from another party. And then I said, well, how much was it for? And you're like, I'm a little uncomfortable saying that. And you guys go back and forth. Well, you've done one good thing, which you've introduced competition. But now you've put yourself in a bad position because when we talk about disparity of desire, you are actually making the phone call, right? You're chasing the girl now. And so you're calling Dennis, and you're going to be calling Ryan as well. And when you start asking for their offers, a lot of times it makes them start to ask a lot of questions and really try to put you in a position, really try to understand the position that you might be in. And now you could say, hey, I am interested in moving this forward quickly because I have another offer that's going to explode. But if you haven't built the requisite amount of credibility, why should they believe you? Like, you could be bluffing about the other offer. You could actually be desperate to sell. So now you find yourself in somewhat of a pickle. And I know from absolute objective fact from historically doing deals, every single time when I was in private equity and every time a seller called me looking for an offer or seeking feedback, I knew I had somebody that had more desire to do a deal than I did, right? And so that definitely plays into calculations as to what I'm willing to pay, and it absolutely should. You've put yourself in a bad position. You haven't said I want to sell, but your actions are speaking louder than words. And sophisticated buyers are paying attention to this. So how do you avoid that? At the very beginning of the process, you set up arbitrary deadlines. You want to play? Here's when you got to pay. You've got to tender your offer on such and such a time. And now you're not calling these guys. And if they blow through the deadline, and sometimes as an advisor, I'm flexible. If people call me up and say, hey, we really want to do this deal, but boss man's on vacation and I can't get an approval on Monday, no problem. Like, deadlines are made to be broken sometimes. But at the end of the day, it puts me in a position of power, and it puts you, the client, in a position of power, because now we're not revealing anything, right? We set this up from the get-go. This is when the deadline's due. No one's chasing anyone. Buyers come to us. So the first deadline is for the indication of interest. And that indication of interest really kind of establishes, we say it sets markers, right? We've got, if we're lucky, let's say that, in a typical process that we're doing now in the resi and commercial services space, we'll usually go out to somewhere between 30 and 40 private equity firms. And then somewhere between 5 and 10 actual strategic acquirers. And those might be national players in a space. They may be large regionals. They might be private equity-backed platforms. But in any given deal, somewhere between 30 and 50 NDAs go out, and the majority of those get signed. And then somewhere between 30 and 50 information memos go out to those buyers, and they're invited to provide us a proposal by the deadline in the form of an IOI. We get the IOI, and now we're able to lay them side by side. If we're lucky, let's say 50 go out and we get 10 IOIs. I would say that's a really good day, right? We've got 10 IOIs, you've got 10 firms. Now, I know that right off the bat, probably half of those, 5 of those are some 23-year-old kid working in an office just writing IOIs, and the boss looks at it and says, yeah, throw it in, let's see what we can do. But we've got 10 different things to look at. And from there, the sell-side process is really a private, it's a concealed bid private auction is really what it is. And so we are going through iterative bid phases. And so we started the IOI. And then the next phase would be, okay, in order for an acquirer to really get a good sense of whether or not they want to do a deal, they have to meet with at least the owner and likely the management team. And it depends upon the size of the company. But for now, for our purposes today, let's just say they're going to meet with a small group of the management team of your business, 3 people. In a negotiation, there are concessions and there's reciprocity. There's always quid pro quo. So, acquirers, you have tendered an IOI. You want a meeting with a management team, you have to do something for me. There's a quid pro quo. You have the ability to buy the option to sit down with management, but it's going to cost you. So I've got your IOI. This is not going to cut it. This deal's not going to transact at this price. You need to revise your bid forward, raise your price, change your terms. Here's some of the things we don't like in your IOI. And if you're willing to do that, we'll know you're a little bit more serious and we're going to be willing to sit down with you. And so you cause all buyers to purchase the ability to sit down with management team. There's no free ride in this. They revise their offer. They start showing us what we want. Now they can sit down with management. So in that particular case, we get the IOIs and we might say the first bid is due on, June 1st, right? You got 10 days, revise your bid, or you have 5 days, what have you. And depending upon the time of year, we would change the structure here. But let's say you got 5 days. And now in that particular case, we might lose 3, right? We might get 7 revised bids. 3 might say, hey, listen, I'm not willing to pay more than that. So now we've got 7. And we take a look at that. And then we as advisors have some decisions to make because although at times price and terms may all cluster and it may be very, very close. But at other times there's wide dispersions, right? We might have a $15 million offer, a $19 million offer, a $24 million offer, different sorts of structures. So we have to determine who we're going to let to see management. And, old standby position is start with the lowest. If you've got a $24 million offer and you've got a $17 million offer, you might go to the $17 million guy and say, hey, listen, you're really off the mark on this. And while we appreciate doing business with you, it makes sense to have a meeting when you're the lowest offer we have at hand. So if you're serious, I would in good faith revise your offer forward and we'll see if it makes sense for you to have a sit down with management. We might do the lowest offer and the second lowest. Hell, we might do that with all of them. I'm not quite sure yet. And kind of get that feel as we go through the process. But if we do that, and let's say another one falls out and a few revise their bid forward, now they have the management meeting. And so they sit down with management. And of course, after the management meeting, ideally, what's happening here is this. Management is building a relationship with each buyer. So they are investing time and energy into each buyer, and the buyer is investing time, resources into the relationship. We want investment on both sides.